Hi, everyone. I'm Jaime Austin, Curator and Director of Programs at 01, and I'd like to welcome you to the American Arts Incubator online information session. Please note that this session is being recorded and will be made available via the 01.org website. Also joining me today is Kate Spacek, who is the Program Manager for the American Arts Incubator program at 01. So our agenda for the call today will begin with an overview of the program, including the program components, selection criteria, dates, and application requirements. We plan to give you tips and answer common questions along the way to make sure that this information session is valuable. And then Kate Spacek will share a case study from our Papua New Guinea exchange that just took place. And we'll share more about what we're looking for in artists, and we'll make sure to allow 15 to 20 minutes at the end for questions and answers. If you have questions right now, you can still submit those via the online form on 01.org. If you have a Google account and are logged into the Google Hangout that way, you can also open up the Q&A part of the app and ask questions. And if you ask questions live, we will be answering those as they come in during that last portion of the information session. As part of our overview, so 01, we are a Silicon Valley arts organization, and we connect creative explorers in art, science, and technology to provoke new ideas that shape a more resilient future. We are the nonprofit responsible for administering the American Arts Incubator program. The program was started in 2013. And this is the second round of calls for artist proposals that we're issuing as part of the program. Our partner in this whole program is the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. And we receive grant funding for them to run this program, and they're really our partner through the whole project. And so our program manager there is someone else who this artist will be working with specifically. Now, the American Arts Incubator, like I mentioned, it was initiated in 2013 with our first 4 artists traveling overseas this year in 2015. The program addresses community issues through cross-cultural art collaborations, and it's really a hybrid of a training lab, a production workshop, and a public art exhibition. Really what we did is, as a Silicon Valley-based arts organization, we're trying to think about how can we take some of these incubator models that have been made famous in this area and export those out to different places, but have them apply very specifically to the arts. So really a goal of this program is to have the artist travel abroad to lead this incubator where the artist is creating work, but they are also helping give out micro grants or small grants to local artists in each overseas location who are also enabled to create public art projects. And all of these art projects coming out of the American Arts Incubator are tied to specific social issues. So you can see on the slide here, which is a screenshot of the American Arts Incubator website, which you can go to at americanartsincubator.org. The first 4 countries that the program has been focused on are Laos, Mongolia, Papua New Guinea, and the Philippines. And each of those countries also has a specific social issue that those projects are being developed around, and that social issue is something that is identified collaboratively between the U.S. Embassy in that location, the artist, and 01. So we've looked at topics like environmental health, economic development, and women's empowerment. Those are still very popular topics. Youth empowerment is another big one, but there's a chance that those could also change based on this next the next round of countries that's being selected. Part of this is, the U.S. artists are actually sent abroad to team up very specifically with youth, with underserved community members, local artists, and overseas arts organizations and NGOs to create these impactful community-based art projects in the mediums of new media and digital art specifically. In the first call, we did also include mural arts in that, but this second call for proposals is specifically focused on new media and digital arts. And I'll make sure we come back and talk a little bit more about what that means, because I know there were quite a few questions about that. But as this is a program that's also being planned by the State Department, part of it is to advance U.S. foreign policy goals by addressing these specific local community issues through the arts. So we're looking for artists, but also for diplomats, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of those characteristics a little bit later. To go through some of the nuts and bolts of how the program works, the selected artists will be, one, developing their own public art project that will be created and presented during their 3 to 4 weeks of time that they spend overseas. And that project will also connect to a week-long incubator workshop that the artist leads that trains overseas participants to use new media approaches to research and develop proposals for community-based public art projects. So typically how that works is the artist arrives in the overseas location, they give a talk to share more about their work and kind of recruit overseas individuals to participate in the workshop. And then during the week-long incubator workshop, the artist is teaching skills, but they're also working with those participants to develop proposals for public art projects focused on that specific social issue. And then that leads to the next part where the artist is also administering these small grant awards to 4 different artists or artist groups who are also creating projects, and then basically helping mentor those groups as they create those community-driven public art projects in the overseas location. And it's a really tight time frame, 3 to 4 weeks, but at the end of that, there's kind of a public presentation of these projects. Some of them, are more prototypes or examples of what's to come, but the idea is to incubate these ideas and then share them with the local community and try to, find partners there that can help make them more sustainable. So another large part of this program is the process to document the projects so that they can be shared via social media and also via the American Arts Incubator website. Next slide. Who you'll work with, so 01, we are the main kind of leader and producer of this project, so we'll be your top contact. There's also the U.S. Embassy in the overseas location. There are overseas partners. How this works is that each location has a specific arts partner who is our partner in hosting the workshop and in helping with the public art projects. So that's where the home base tends to be. And then we often work with other NGOs that are focused specifically on the social issue. And that overseas partner is involved in the process from beginning to end. And then we also have our program manager at the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, who has a lot of experience in running these programs and really is our liaison in working with these different groups. So this really is a project that involves a lot of collaboration, and most of the major decisions are made kind of jointly between these different entities. Key dates. These are also available on the 01 website and in the PDF that you can download, but the application deadline is Sunday, May 31st by 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So there's a little bit more time, but we highly recommend that you try to get those applications in early because there tends to be a push on the system when everyone is downloading or uploading them at the last minute. But Sunday, May 31st is the deadline. As far as the dates for the program are concerned, the program duration is August 1st through 31st, August 1st, 2015, this year, through August 31st, 2016. So the program duration is a little bit over a year when you're involved in some facet of the program. But then the core dates for in-person participation are an orientation that takes place in San Jose that'll be scheduled sometime in August to September 2015. All 4 participating artists are brought to San Jose at the same time, and we have our own kind of orientation incubator that we run. And then overseas travel will be approximately 4 weeks in duration between October 2015 and June 2016. And those specific dates are determined collaboratively with the artist, the overseas embassy, the partner, and 01. So, there needs to be some flexibility when you could be available for this 4-week duration, but certainly we work around the artist schedules as best we can to make those happen. In addition, during that program duration, there are multiple deliverables. We're often in touch via, conference calls and group calls. We also, there's a whole process for submitting project proposals, for planning calendars, for workshop curriculum, blog post for the American Arts Incubator website, and then there's also kind of project recaps and tracking that needs to be done after one study goes abroad. So that's why there's quite a long program duration to bringing this program from beginning to end. The participating countries for the second round are China, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. The Philippines was also one of the countries that participated in the first round of the American Arts Incubator. So if you go to the American Arts Incubator website, you can read specifically about that. At this time, we don't have the exact locations confirmed for each of those countries. So in your application, I would keep it a little bit more general to those specific places. For example, in the Philippines for the first round, we were in Bacolod, and there most likely will be a different location selected for this next round. Other countries, we were, in the same city as the embassies. So this is something that will be determined a little bit later on in the process. This has been a common question, but you must apply to a specific country. And the reason we're doing that is because it's very important that the artist demonstrates an interest and a passion for that specific country and location. And in past rounds, the applications that showed either research or knowledge or passion for a country fared much better than applications that were more general. And so we really want you to share why you're passionate about a particular country. That said, we also understand that many artists have projects that could work in different locations or could work between different cultural contexts. And so that's why we are allowing you to apply to a maximum of 2 countries, but you are going to need to submit an individual application for each country because different countries do have different social and community issues that are more pressing. And we'll talk about this a little bit more later. So the selection process, so the submissions will be reviewed by a selection panel. So they all are submitted to 01. We go through and organize them, and then we oversee a selection panel which will take place in June that has representatives from 01, from ECA, plus additional arts professionals that have expertise in new media and digital arts, as well as community engagement. And then what happens is this selection committee comes together, and we recommend 3 to 4 artists to each embassy, artists who we feel are the best match for those specific locations. And then the US Embassy and ECA together select the top artist as well as an alternate who they think fit best for them. And so in that sense, 01, we're recommending artists, we're advocating for artists, but the final selection does take place by the US Embassy and ECA. One artist or collaborative duo will be selected for each country. That's a question we've been getting a lot, is I'm part of an artist collective or collaborative, am I allowed to apply together? We are allowing artist collectives up to 2 people to apply to work together for each country. One artist or collective will be selected for each country. You cannot go to more than one country. You would only be selected for a maximum of 1 location. The reason we're limiting it for up to 2 artists is really tied to the budget and the capacity as far as supporting travel and lodging and expenses while abroad. And the funding is the same, whether it's 1 artist who goes or 2, just so you're aware. And the fact if it was a collaborative duo, then that duo would be asked to share the budget related to both project costs and to travel and living expenses. Notification for the artists and the alternates will take place in July 2015. And if there's more questions, please send those in during the rest of this overview, and we'll be sure to answer those at the end. What we thought would be most helpful would be to give a case study of one of the exchanges that has already taken place. One thing we've definitely learned is that each location and each exchange is very unique, and things are going to go differently in different places, but we thought it would be helpful to walk you through part of the process. So I'm going to give kind of an overview introduction, and then I'm going to pass things over to Kate Spacek, who actually was present in Papua New Guinea for that exchange, to talk a little bit more. But this is a case study with artist Kendall Henry. He's based in New York, and he traveled to Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, and the social issue identified for that exchange was women's empowerment. And so as part of that, Kendall was actually invited to participate in a women's empowerment forum that was being planned by the embassy in that location. And we timed the exchange to take place specifically around this forum, since it was discussing the social issue that was core to these projects. So in the top image that you see here, that's Kendall on stage speaking with other leaders at the Women's Forum. And then the image below that is showing the workshop that took place after. And, with a topic like women's empowerment, it can be somewhat sensitive. And what Kendall did was kind of go in and really meet with everyone and talk about what that topic means to them, whether male or female. And everyone came down to this idea of confidence. And that confidence was something that, if you felt confident, then, as a woman, you felt more empowered, you felt more, bold to try things. As a man, you would treat women better. And that was kind of the core curriculum of the program, which then went on to select microgrant projects from that. So I'm going to pass it over to Kate to speak a little more specifically about that and talk about some of the attributes that we're looking for in artists.
Hey everybody, this is Kate. Thank you for joining and for your interest in the program. So do you want me to talk more about Papua New Guinea?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. What you see here then on the next slide is on the left, Kendall Henry's project was a kind of a virtual reality application that allowed people, whether young or old, to see themselves as graduates of whatever field they were interested in. And this notion of confidence became the backbone for the rest of the project. So down below to the right, you can see that university students at Papua New Guinea developed these sculptural platforms. And that one there that the young girl is standing on says Papua New Guinea's best scientist. And there was another one for CEO and another one for the different main schools that were on campus. And so this was able to expand into a social media campaign. You go up to the picture above that, and it's a group of women that are starting a collective for the traditional art there in Papua New Guinea of weaving bilum. And they weave this bilum into bags. And the art project there was to develop or design almost like a business model or a way for this art to be shared to a broader context, both in Papua New Guinea and around the world. And then the image that you see there of the colorful boxes, that actually is the YWCA's youth group. And they created a confidence building outfit booth. And what they're going to do with that is actually take it on tour. It will become a Wi-Fi hotspot that will attract young people to come and interact face to face. And at the same time, have an opportunity to talk about what types of outfits they feel most confident in. So the reason that we thought it would be valuable to share this is so that you can see the wide range of projects that could come out of just exploring a social issue as wide as women's empowerment and the different ways that that could look. Let's see. So as Jaime mentioned, each of these exchanges, we are learning quickly to be very different. And I was fortunate to accompany the artists in both Papua New Guinea and the Philippines, and just returned a couple weeks ago. And so I just want to give you, I guess, more on the ground, maybe touchy-feely information of what that would be like for you as an artist to be in that experience. we were so focused on the planning that I had not mentally prepared for the realities of actually being in these different countries. And I think the key takeaway for me and for both the artists was how inspiring it was to be working with these different groups of people, because you will be facilitating an experience that turns out to be very special for the participants involved. And you know, I would say that this is one of the more exciting and dynamic environments that I've ever worked in, because you are constantly interacting with a truly diverse group of people, and you get to show most of these people for the first time how art, and specifically public art and new media and digital art, can bring people together to explore the issues that are widespread in these locations that are affecting every participant in that room in different yet very personal ways. And in both Papua New Guinea and the Philippines, culturally, they tend to be a little more quiet than I think what we are here in the US. And for them to essentially sense that they are being heard for the first time around these issues, and you know, feel that what they say actually matters, is what really allowed them to open up their creative side. And so, you know, what you have the opportunity to do over there is truly make an impact, not only in the tangible outcomes of the art projects, but also for the participants to really shift their perspective in so many different ways. So to make all this magic happen in less than 28 days, a significant amount of upfront communication and planning and coordination is required. And Jaime talked a little bit about those different deliverables that will be expected. And I don't want you to take those lightly, because they are very important. And then once you're on the ground, the type of people that we're looking for are very comfortable working on the fly and being super productive at the same time. So you're navigating a lot of unknowns, yet you really need to be able to zoom in into details and then zoom back out to make sure that where you are placing your efforts are aligning with top priority. The role is very heavy on facilitating, and there will be some public speaking involved, and an interpreter will be provided when necessary. You will be juggling a lot of personalities, and you will be working with boundaries, all while maintaining a very professional approach. I think that's the diplomat that Jaime had mentioned, that, of course, if you're selective, we'll go into in greater detail. And the part that I found most fun was the continuous problem solving. And not to say necessarily that there are a lot of problems, but you find yourself in a perpetual state of decision making. And so you're always looking to make the best choice when you can't quite be sure of all the variables at that time, which I find fun, and is an important thing for you to know, because you need to be flexible around that. With that being said, we're also looking for someone that is ultra organized. You will be managing your own project. You will be managing 4 small grant projects. You will be tracking expenses, program metrics, getting everything documented through photo and video, uploading blog posts, and continuously emailing with the program manager and the other staff at 01. So overall, the ideal artist is, of course, going to have the strong record of artistic accomplishment in the new media and digital arts, which, of course, would ideally include experience in public art, in the community engagement aspects of public art, and with that, we really want you to have that passion for collaboration. This is not a situation where you will land over in this other country and be within your own residency environment for a month. Everything that you're doing is going to be collaborative and community driven. And that's what will really enable that social change that the program's looking for and create that sustainability. The interest in the social issue is important because the social issue ended up being the tie that bound the participants together and really created a framework for consistency throughout each of the programs. And we're finding that the issues really are one of 4 main topics that Jaime alluded to: youth empowerment, women's empowerment, economic development, and environmental health. And those may seem specific, but when you start to dig into any of those, they really can go in an endless direction. So I don't want you to feel confined by the social issue as far as the art goes. What else? And then going back to that, being a diplomat, to be able to be in a somewhat stressful, fun, but stressful situation and still maintain that level of diplomacy with every person that you are encountering is a very important piece of the program. And then don't forget that you need to be a US citizen, at least 18 years old, and residing in the US at the time of the project. And we've had questions about that.
We can talk about that a little bit more. And I think, I mean, all of this can sound overwhelming, but I think what's so exciting about this program, at least to me, is that, something exactly like this going abroad hasn't really been done before. And this is a great opportunity to test things out, to prototype, to experiment, and to kind of learn a little bit as you go. And certainly, these are very, it's important to these communities. We don't want to kind of drop in and then immediately, kind of come out. The idea is to create, longer lasting relationships and really help incubate ideas and arts practice in these locations and really address the social issue. But, it is all, kind of experimental. And so we're really looking for adventurers and explorers who are willing to, take that on and, learn right alongside with us. There's a lot of support for this program. There's a lot of, people here, specifically at 01, we're dedicated to supporting the artists in the preparation while they're abroad and afterward. And there's, whole teams of people working on this. But we also want to be, upfront with the types of artists who we're looking for, because it's definitely not an opportunity where you can kind of create a project in your studio, ship it over to the location, present it, and then come back. We're really looking for someone who wants to get their hands dirty and, create something, while overseas in a very short period of time that, they feel good about sharing with that community. So we thought what might be helpful at this point was to kind of walk through some of the narrative questions that are in the application and talk a little bit more about what we're looking for in those. And then I believe we're headed toward Q&A. So as we mentioned, we're asking people to apply specifically for one country. So if you apply to more than one country, then you would be submitting 2 separate applications for that. So the first question, is why are you applying to this country? This is really your opportunity to share your interests, your research, or your passion for that specific location. Why, this country at this moment with your project is really what we're asking you to tell us about. The second question is asking you to propose a social issue that you are interested in exploring. And we understand that this one can, feel a little bit tricky. Really, this is our kind of quest to get to know you a little bit better. We want to know what your art practice is about. If you've done community-based work, what social issues were you focused on? What really matters to you? As Kate mentioned, there's particular areas that we're seeing, the program gravitate toward, as far as youth and women's empowerment, environment, and economic empowerment. But certainly if, there's other social issues that, are of interest. I know, HIV, AIDS awareness and education was something that was, mentioned when, we applied to lead this program. Conflict resolution is something else. So I think we're giving you these 4 examples as a guide of what we know that there's current interest in. So if your practice connects to any of those, by all means, propose them. But if there is a different social issue, you should propose what is most connected to your work. We won't completely hold you to this. The social issue will be determined in collaboration with the embassy and ECA. As an example, with Papua New Guinea, we've learned in the process of talking with them that they had planned this women's forum and that they were looking for more, speakers and support and awareness around that. So that's how we came collectively to the idea of, well, let's have the American Arts Incubator focus on women's empowerment, and then it can connect to this forum that's being planned already. So sometimes it is something that's, more organic through conversation, but we're asking you to propose a social issue so we can learn more about how social issues are connected to your work. Another narrative question is to list or describe possible formats or mediums for a public artwork that you are interested in completing. Again, this is our way of learning more about your art practice. A later part of the application does ask for work samples so that we can see specific projects that you've worked on. But for some people, their work samples are strong, but maybe there's a different medium that you're really interested in working on overseas, and this is your opportunity to explain that, and also think about what is possible in overseas locations. In Papua New Guinea, we struggled with internet access, and so and had to get creative around that. So different locations lend themselves to different levels of technology. I would say, looking forward, if you look at a location like China, that will probably not be a problem. But this is, again, we're not going to hold you to this. It's our way to get to know you better. I mean, maybe you're an artist who, creates kind of online and web-based work, but you've been researching augmented reality and think that that would be, a medium you'd like to explore here. This is an opportunity for you to tell part of that story. And we'll talk a little bit more about formats and mediums in the Q&A as well. Another question we've asked is for you to describe an experience you've had using your art practice to address a relevant social issue. Again, this is a chance for you to tell a story, of how, you think about social issues and consider them as part of your work. And again, we want to learn more about that. The next question is provide a proposed title of a week-long new media workshop. And this is more so we can learn about how you would approach this. As we shared the program components, part of it is you have a project in your mind that you want to perform overseas. And then, a lot of this is how can you also connect that in some way to a workshop where you're kind of teaching or training with some sort of skill. As far as the workshop goes, this doesn't necessarily mean everyone's in front of a computer and you're step-by-step walking them through how to use, a software application as an example. That's not exactly what we're looking at. We're more looking at how can we use digital and new media approaches to create public art and connect with communities and look at social issues. There might be specific technologies, maybe around designing a mobile app, that would make sense to teach as part of a workshop. But a lot of this is really kind of opening up people to the idea of what art can be. Many of the communities we work with haven't been exposed to, social practice or community-based work as a form of art. And so a lot of the workshop is getting them comfortable with participating in, that process themselves. So we're asking for a title more to kind of see the approach that you would take in leading a workshop. If you've led a workshop before that you thought were highly successful and this, connects to your work, you can propose something that you've had experienced, giving. That's also okay. And then we have provide a brief description of how you would approach teaching that workshop. It's kind of tied to what I've been talking about is, if you had 5 to 7 days with a group and you wanted to kind of teach them a skill, get them comfortable with using these new media and digital approaches to creating art, and work with them to all create proposals, whether in groups or individually, to create their own work, how would you go about thinking about it in that way? This is really focused on that kind of first week when the artists are overseas hit the ground running and making these community connections, and then follow up, there's more time to actually create and oversee these projects. So again, all of this, we're not going to 100% hold you to what you say here. Don't be worried about that. This is so we can get to know you better, and then each of these items will be explored further with our partner in the overseas location as well as the embassy, to really craft a program that works for the specific location. So now we're into the Q&A section of the presentation, and I have a number of questions here that were submitted ahead of time. So I'm going to start with those questions, and then if you are in the Google Hangout, you can also ask additional questions that way. And if you have further questions after this webinar, ones that were not answered, you can email coordinator@01.org. And submit questions that we will try to get back to as soon as possible that way. So we had a question: can you currently be enrolled as a student in order to participate in this program? The answer to that one, is yes, you can be enrolled in a student. Our main criteria are that you need to be 18 years or older, or any U.S. citizen. I will say the more, the more work samples you have showing successful community-based and new media work, the stronger application can be, but there's no specific restrictions around being a student. Another question says, we are an artist team. We were wondering if we could apply as a collaborative team of 2 people, or if we need to submit individual applications. The answer is that you can submit 1 application if you apply as a collaborative team. We are limiting the number of artists who travel abroad as part of the collaborative to 2 based on travel and budget constraints, but you can apply as a collaborative team. 1 artist or artist duo will be selected for each location, and we will have a total of 4 artists or 4 duos. You cannot be selected for 2 locations. Another question was, you are allowed to apply to 2 countries, but are you allowed to do a proposal where your project takes place in 2 countries on the same specific theme? And the answer to that is no. In the end, the selected artists will be focused specifically on 1 country and 1 community. We do have the American Arts Incubator website, which we see as a virtual exchange, and we're planning to build in additional features that connect the locations where the incubator is taking place. So there is some opportunity for cross-pollination that way, but a single artist will not be working with 2 communities simultaneously. The next question is, will you consider projects that lean towards the use of social media as a communications technology or as a transmedia project? Or I know we also had a few questions of, will we accept digital storytelling projects? And really what this all gets down to is, what is new media and what is our definition of new media and digital art? I think, and new media is quite a broad term. I think, at 01, our focus is on this intersection of art and technology. And so when we say new media, what we're interested in, are projects that look at kind of the relationship between technology and society. This doesn't mean that the result of a project needs to be screen-based or needs to have blinking lights. But we are asking that projects look at this relationship between kind of technology, society, and the social issue in some way. I think within that, there's a fair amount of flexibility as it relates to your particular expertise and practice. I think the use of social media as a communications technology, that's something that, definitely fits within this umbrella and could be interesting. Transmedia as well, if it's a project that has, a video component and a web component. I know that was the example proposed. I think one thing we've learned in this first round, which has been interesting, is just how strong Facebook is as a platform in these countries that we're working in. And so we've actually ended up using Facebook a lot and have really been thinking about how social media connects people in these countries. So I think projects that, connect to social media in some way are definitely a fit for this sort of program. Digital storytelling projects, I think, also can connect. I know we had the question, what about documentary film? And it's tricky. I mean, I think we need to know a little more about it. I think artists who already have plans for a documentary film and it's already, in production and planning, and this is kind of tacked onto that, I think those projects are not the best fit for this opportunity. But certainly we can see a world where, maybe there's, this art experience that artists have had abroad is something that a documentary film could be part of the outcome of the project. And I think that's something that we're open to looking at. We have the question, are you supporting mural projects in this round? And the answer to that is no, we're not supporting mural projects in this round in the same way that we did in round one. The first round of the program was focused on mural arts and new media and digital arts. And we've focused the second round call specifically on new media and digital arts. That said, I mean, there's, different definitions of a mural. And, if there's a component that connects to technology, whether it's through projection mapping or live inputs or, performative aspect, I mean, I think, propose it if you can give it a narrative of how this connects to new media and digital art. But projects that are just specifically having an outcome of, painting a mural on a wall are not covered in this round of the program. Another question is, if and when will you be having an American Arts Incubator program in Latin America? We would love to expand to Latin America. At this point, I mean, the program has been focused specifically on Asia. We're looking at ways to expand the program in collaboration with ECA, but ECA and the State Department are the ones who determine the locations for this program. And right now the program has been focused on Asia, although we're very open to expanding it to other locations and can really see how it can work, in many communities, even, places in the United States. So we're hopeful that we can continue to expand the program in the future, but for this specific round, we are not focused on Latin America. Another question I know has been asked is, what do you mean about residing in the United States at the time of the program? The reason we're asking for that is because we do have an orientation that's located here in San Jose, and we need to be able to kind of look at and budget for travel. And it's, much more streamlined if, everyone's in the United States within those time zones to deal with all of the planning. That said, if an artist's plans change and they are abroad, we would, look at working with an artist who wasn't residing in the United States, but they might be responsible for some of the travel costs if they were additional between, getting kind of themselves to the orientation or to the country. So we would look at that on an individual basis. I'm looking at the one that says, okay, so I think it's specific to the Philippines. Someone's asking, the theme this year was environmental health. You're working on a different theme right now. Would 01 support this divergent theme? I would say, the social issue, while we're working in the Philippines again, and we know environmental health is something very important to the embassy there, the second, program is individual. And so we would have a discussion, with the embassy, if they were open to other social issues. Environmental health has not been, determined officially as the area of emphasis for round two. So I would say if your personal art practice focuses on another social issue, I would certainly recommend applying with the social issue that matters the most to you, that you are passionate about and connects to your artwork. And then that's something that would be considered as part of the review process. Certainly, in the first round, we didn't ask artists to list social issues. But then we found that, the stronger applications were artists who had stated what they were passionate about. And we learned that the artists did actually have a lot of power in advocating for the social issue in each country, as long as it fit within, the initiatives the embassy was looking at. And so we are looking for some artist leadership in this area. The next question is, would you be open to a project that already has a specific population to work with within a target country? Again, I mean, a lot of these are questions we can, potentially take offline individually. I think, artists who have experience working in a particular country or with a particular community, we do view that favorably. It's great if artists have connections already, because we know that the time frame for this program is so short that if people have existing relationships, that could be helpful. That said, that specific kind of population and those relationships also need to correspond with the social issue and with some of the goals that the embassy has for the program. So, I would say it's helpful if you have them certainly state that. It would never hurt you to state that in your application, but we can't guarantee that that's specifically, the population that you would be working with in the end, especially because in some of these countries, they're quite large, and at this exact moment, we don't know exactly where the program might be based. It looks like I made it through most of the questions that have been submitted live. We're just looking here briefly if anyone's additional questions came in through the form on the website. I would like to point out that there is an FAQ page that you can get to from the main page on the website. And so if you look at the kind of requirements, criteria, and more information link that we have up in the PowerPoint right now, there's a link there to the FAQ document, and the frequently asked questions document is one that we're keeping updated based on the questions that we're receiving. If we receive, a few questions about something, then we try to clarify it in that document. So that is something that's being updated every few days. So if you have questions, I recommend checking back there. And you can also email coordinator@01.org, and we'll try to answer questions that way as well. And with that, I think we'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you for your interest in the American Arts Incubator program. We really hope that you do end up applying and share this opportunity with your community. We're incredibly excited about what we've seen in the first round, and we're really hopeful about the second round as we launch this with another great group of artists. There's a question I'm just reading that came in right now that basically says, if you had experience working with artists in the country of choice, should we refer these potential partners? I think, listing, say something like, I've had experience working in the Philippines with, artists A, B, and C, or with these institutions. I think that that's something that, is strong and looks like you've, researched and, shows your passion for the location. And that's something that would become part of future conversations moving forward. And if there's additional questions you have kind of around that, then, please email coordinator@01.org, and we can try to address your specific questions and situations that way. All right, so applications are due May 31st by 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're excited. We're excited for the interest that this program is generating, and we hope that you found this session helpful and that you are in the process of pulling together strong applications. So good luck to all of you in your art practices.
Thank you.